This is the Decibel Geek Podcast with Aaron Camaro and Chris Sinzak.
Your boys are back in town. That's right. It's time for the Decibel Geek Podcast. My name is Aaron Camaro, joined as always by my good friend, Chris Sinzak.
How's it going?
It's going great, man. Fantastic. Things are changing in the world. New things happening all the time. Whew. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
But we're here.
I'm super excited for this week.
I really am, too.
Long time
because,
coming.
yeah, we've been talking about doing this forever.
Years.
Like years and years. We just passed 6,500 on the Facebook likes.
We did.
We've been doing this for years.
We have.
Thank you to everybody that likes us on Facebook, all the real people.
Real people, no robots.
No robots.
Except Dave.
All 6,500 of them. Yeah, except for Dave, of course. But yeah, no, it's awesome. So things are great. And, you know, like you said, today's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thin Lizzy discussion. We have a special guest today. We're going to go through pretty much the whole career, album by album and everything. Going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
So, but you know, before we get to all that, we got to take care of our business. And our business is iTunes reviews, Facebook recommendations. No,
just iTunes.
Oh no, just one this week.
Just one.
No Podchaser.
No Podchaser.
Is Podchaser dead?
I'm starting to wonder.
Is it like MySpace? It's gone.
It's still there. It's just we're getting no reviews.
Well, that's okay because we got a really, really awesome iTunes review. You got to check this out. It's entitled True Rock Geeks, and it comes to us from Jeff K. on Long Island. 5 stars. Oh, yeah, they're all right there. Goes a little something like this. I've been listening to these guys from almost the beginning, and after 7 or so years and almost 350 episodes, I figured, okay, maybe these guys know what they're doing.
We finally convinced him.
Remember how you used to get together with your best friends and everyone would bring over records and you would play your favorite stuff, new and old? Or maybe heading back home after a show, stopping in some 24-hour diner and having arguments long into arguing over your top 10 favorite Maiden songs? And that's what these guys are. Listening to these guys on a weekly basis totally brings me back to those times, and it's the type of podcast you just want to jump in on and join the conversation. I'll forgive the tragic error they made in their 1981 year in review show when they said the effing Rangers won the cup. Boo! It was the Islanders, fellas. That's on me, I guess.
Well, we're not hockey
I don't remember. Yeah, this ain't NHL geek. But seriously, Chris and Aaron, while having different styles, have a great rapport with each other and feel like old friends. Keep it going.
It's a good review from Long Island.
That's an awesome
Jeff.
Review. That's how it's done on Long Island.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Sweet. No Facebook reviews, recommendations, no Podchaser.
No.
But I think that more than makes up for it.
Certainly does.
Thank you, Jeff.
And our other favorite people, the Geeks of the Week this week, these are the people that shared on Facebook or retweeted on Twitter last week's 6 songs Jason Morris thinks you should hear. Thanks again to Jason for coming on and sharing this story.
He was great, man.
It was a great show.
He told us about Gene Simmons and judo.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that. I didn't know that.
I'm still trying to get the image of Gene in a karate gi out of my head.
No, it's awesome. Okay. I love it.
All right. Geeks of the Week this week, our Cobras and Fire podcast, Baco, Kevin Williams, David Cathy, Jason Morris, Morris Cup, New York Judo Championship shared it.
Nice.
Matt Ashcraft, Joseph Capone, Darren Parkin, United States Judo Association shared it.
Right on.
Decibel Geek TV, Rock and Ron Runyon, Jay Shabluski, Aaron Baker, Aaron Camaro. Thank you for sharing it, Aaron.
I know him.
Andy LaFawn, Jeffrey Mendenhall, David Glenn, Mike Parnell, Mike Tyler, Adam Cox, Brent Cattell, again, Andrew Jacobs, Shane Aber, Todd Cunningham, Eladio, Christopher Stokes, Ernesto Aguiar, Digital Kill the Radio Star, David Hudson, Daniel Lee, Bipolar Billy, Twisted Kister, and, of course, the Mooger Fooger.
I know all these people because they're the ones that always have our back, our Geeks of the Week. All they had to do to gain our love was to share last week's episode, which was a lot of fun. They loved it a lot. They went out there, they shared it, they retweeted it, all that good stuff, and they became honorary Geeks of the Week. You could be the same. Just share this week's episode, our Thin Lizzy discussion. And man, am I ready to get into it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm sitting at the learning tree because I've only gotten into Thin Lizzy recently. I've got the old master, Chris Sinzak, and I've got the young master, Greg Troyan. from the Lipstick panel.
Hey, thanks for having me. I just want to say real quick, this is an honor. Like, before I got into podcasting, you guys were like the big podcast that I was aware of. So like, whoa, I'm on Decibel Geek?
You finally made it.
I finally made it.
Wow. As our heads swell.
Well, it's awesome to have you on, and we've guested on your show, the Lipstick Panel. Explain a little bit about what the Lipstick Panel is.
So the Lipstick Panel is largely a commercial for my hard rock band called Lipstick. And what we do each week is myself and the bassist from Lipstick, we have special guests on, and we mainly do album rankings. So we take an album, and we have each panelist vote on their favorite songs. So they vote from the songs from best to least best. We add up the points, and then we see where the point values add up. And then we discuss song by song in order to see what the panel came up with as the best song on the album. And it's pretty fun. We get into some pretty heated arguments like, what? How did this song rank so low? It's my favorite. And, we've got a Hot in the Shade episode coming up, and I'm really nervous about how high Boomerang is going to rank, and just going to...
Number one.
I'm already cringing with the savages that I have on that episode with me.
Well, you guys might remember not too long ago, Chris, myself, and Baco from Cobras and Fire appeared on the Lipstick panel, and we broke down the rankings on Animalize, and it was a lot of fun. If you guys didn't get a chance to check that out, it's a great place to start, and then subscribe to the Lipstick panel. It's a great show.
If you like Kiss, which I feel like your audience does.
Our fans like Kiss? Most of them.
We are going through the entire Kiss catalog in order. My bassist is not super familiar with Kiss, so he's hearing a lot of it for the first time. So if you want to hear someone with virgin ears hearing Bang Bang You for the first time and reacting to it.
Oh, the horror.
Then I'll tell you, this is the podcast for you. Someone having to analyze the lyrics of Bang Bang You, like, I've just heard this for the first time. Here are my thoughts.
You have to know how to count.
Right. I'll treat you good because I'm a bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
But we're not talking about Kiss today.
But aside from you being a big Kiss fan like we are, you are a huge Thin Lizzy fan.
Oh, yeah. I've often joked with Steve. I said, you know what? I'd probably be a better songwriter if I listened to more Thin Lizzy in high school than I did Kiss. and the thing is, I listened to a lot of both of those bands. I'm like, I should have gone more the Thin Lizzy route. I made the decision early on, like, should I do glam or Heartland rock? I went glam. Bad choice. No, I love both bands, and Lizzy is... in my top three, in the holy trinity of favorite bands, just phenomenal. I could rant forever about this band, so I'll just wait till we get song by song, album by album, how we do it. But yeah, adore this band very much. Huge influence on me. Huge influence.
Awesome. And Chris, I know you're a huge Thin Lizzy fan.
But I guess more of a newer fan. Like, I didn't grow up listening to them. Like, for a long time, The Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak was really all that I knew. And I was like, oh, those are cool songs, but I never really delved into them. Of course, when we start this show, you hear from listeners saying, oh, you should check out this band, you should go more into this band and stuff like that. And Thin Lizzy was one that came up in conversation a lot when we started the show. And one day I started listening to them, and I really fell down a rabbit hole. And they're one of my top 5 bands now.
See, and I'm a little different from you guys because when I was in school, I was a huge Kiss fan, and there was this one guy, I remember him in high school, that used to say to me all the time, fuck Kiss, Thin Lizzy. And so I never wanted nothing to do with Thin Lizzy because of that. And so, but I'd always hear Jailbreak, and I'd always hear The Boys Are Back in Town, and those was the only songs I ever heard, and I heard them. It was like the radio just pushed it down your throat, over and over again, and it made me not like Thin Lizzy. And it wasn't until doing the Decibel Geek podcast and Chris started playing Thin Lizzy songs on the show that every time he'd play one, I'd be like, wow, that's awesome. I got to check out more of this. So before we go any further, I'd just like to dedicate this episode to the memory of Jimmy Busterud because, dude, you were right. Thin Lizzy is freaking awesome. I love him.
It's so weird that I'm the one who listened to Thin Lizzy in high school in this group.
I know.
It's kind of throwing me off a little bit.
Greg's a little younger than we are.
Yeah, so I'm 29 as of this recording, and so what's interesting about Thin Lizzy is I discovered them in high school. Saw the video for Dedication, and then became a fan instantly. And so I bought a Thin Lizzy CD the same day I brought a Striper CD. So my first Thin Lizzy CD and first Striper CD were bought together. And I still love Striper, but Thin Lizzy's just a little bit better.
All right.
Right on.
So we're just going to go through the whole career.
Cool. And I'm just going to kick back and listen to you guys because I only really know about 3 Thin Lizzy albums.
Okay.
I'm not an expert enough to
and
speak
it's not
on
the
the
first
rest of
3,
it.
I'm guessing.
No.
Which is probably the case for most people. All right, so let's just do a little bit of background. After guitarist Eric Bell and organist Eric Rickson, both formerly of the Irish Van Morrison-led psychedelic group Them, saw Phil Lynott and drummer Brian Downey playing in their band known as Orphanage, the 4 decided to form a band. However, Rickson left soon after to rejoin Them. The remaining 3 adopted the name Thin Lizzy and recorded the eponymous debut album with Decca in 1971, which Thin Lizzy, I know some people are like, that's a strange name. Where did the name come from?
Yeah.
And I think it was initially supposed to be called Tin Lizzy.
Yeah, it's like from an old comic strip or something.
Yeah.
Like some Cockney rhyme joke, like, it's a pun, aren't we funny? So I think that's where it came from. So this first album, I'm going to be honest, so the first 2 Lizzy albums I didn't get until yesterday. I think with these 2 albums, the thing that I, helped make me relate to them was the lyrics are good right away with Thin Lizzy.
Oh, yeah.
So right away, Phil is a masterful storyteller, very heartfelt. The problem is with Thin Lizzy, especially the first 2 records, less with the third, you get this idea in your head of Thin Lizzy sort of being like a tight pop hard rock band with really like tight pop structure. So like, songs not going over 4 minutes typically. And just, verse chorus being extremely catchy. And if the vocal isn't catchy, the guitars are really catchy. And the first album is much more subtle. And so the way that it finally clicked with me is I thought to myself, imagine this was a local band and they were friends of mine. Would I dig this album? And it was yes. Like, they're young guys. They're getting on their feet. They're figuring out what they want to do. There's a lot of Jimi Hendrix-isms. There's a lot of soul in there. There's a lot of psychedelic.
Folky.
Yeah, very folky. And so the thing is, you have to get out of your head of what you want Thin Lizzy to be. But if you listen to it for what it is, there are some great songs on this album that I kind of wrote off. Like Diddy Levine is like a really great story song. Ray Gun is kind of like this cool Jimi Hendrix style rocker. Remembering just, these great heartfelt lyrics. Like right away, the ballads are just so heartfelt. So they're not really a potent rock band at this point, but they've got some fun stuff. Like if you like Hendrix and you heard Ray Gun, you'd be like, yeah, I can jam to this.
I kind of thought Ray Gun almost sounded like a Wicked Lester tune.
It did a little bit. And like the lyrics are so goofy. Like, I found someone who doesn't believe in God because he's an alien. Right. Like, in fairness, Phil didn't write that one. That's one of the few Eric Bell written songs in the catalog. But I just love that lyric. Like, it's such a goofy concept. Of course, aliens don't believe in Jesus.
So where does Thin Lizzy come from? You talk like Jimi Hendrix. I mean, if you talk to Thin Lizzy back then, who were their influences?
Well, I mean, it would make sense that Phil Lynott, like the one black guy in Ireland who wants to do rock, he's going to look at other black guys doing rock, and there's Jimi Hendrix, and that's
for sure an influence.
That's who his hero is.
Van Morrison.
Van Morrison.
Yeah.
So, he's sort of a blending, and, he's got a lot of like soul influences too, and Elvis is a big influence on Phil Lynott.
I can see
there's
that.
There's some Elvisisms and some of the vocal affectations on the first couple albums where he's like kind of almost doing an Elvis impression. So there's a love for American rock and roll from him, and just like he sort of mystifies it and just like longs to go to America, where the land of his heroes.
Right on. I like that.
And
that's a good start.
That would play out later when they did go to America. Like, he truly fell in love with Hollywood and that whole lifestyle. But for me, this album, I mean, it's one of those where I kind of had to go back and revisit it, because the first few times I heard it, I was like, it's all this folky weirdness, and didn't click with me either. But I think Honesty Is No Excuse is a really great song.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Ray Gun, like I said, sounds like Wicked Lester. Look What the Wind Blow In is really great. Now on Clifton Garage Hotel, this is something where some of this stuff does carry over into later works by them. Clifton Garage Hotel is kind of the beginning where they would do these kind of jazzy, loungy type sounding songs, and that would repeat on albums. Even much later, they would always have one or two tracks that were kind of that way, much to Scott Gorham's chagrin from what I've heard in interviews.
And Saga of the Aged Orphan, such a sad, beautiful
It's a painful song.
Especially when you think of it in the context of, Phil had a son that he put up for adoption, I think like a year before this. And so I was listening to it today, and I was sort of resonating with the lyrics on that level. And I think that might be what he was singing about, because he knew he couldn't take care of that child and had to like send them away and never see them again. And that's kind of like, a heartbreaking story. And to hear him bare his soul on record, it's so like,
wow.
Like, the thing about, Phil Lynott that really gravitates me towards Thin Lizzy, like, I know everyone's always like, oh yeah, the guitar players are great, I have a huge boner for the guitar players. And, and that's true. They're awesome. But the thing is, Phil is the band.
Right. He's the spirit of the band.
He is the spirit of the band. And, sort of my evidence for that is you have all these different guitar players come and go, but the albums are still great. Right. What's that glue? Yeah. It's his songs. And what he does, as I mentioned, we did a 2-parter on Jailbreak on the Lipstick Panel plug. Heyo. But I talked about how he was like the sort of my ideal rock star and the ideal epitome of masculinity in music done right, where it's not just puffing out your chest. Part of being a man is throwing down and beating the shit out of somebody in a bar fight and, having, attractive women fawn over you. That is part of being a man. But part of being a man is reflecting and heartbreak and growing. Right. And the fact that he has both. It's not just, I'm a total wimp and I only sing these soft, indie rock songs, or I just sing Take It Off, which is a great song. It's like, it's a balance, and he just nails that so perfectly. And the fact that the tunes are catchy, they rock hard, it just succeeds on all levels. And this album, when I looked at it as just Phil writing good songs in a different style, it clicked with me. And I thought that, like, if a buddy of mine put out this album, like, I'd take him out for a beer and, like, we'd have a good chat about it, and I'd really dive into the lyrics. And so that's how I looked at it, and I fell in love with it. Over basically yesterday. I'm like, yes, I finally get it.
Right on. That's cool. I've checked them out. So how do these fall in the rankings of the whole catalog for you? What
hard to
is
rank.
this
The bottom.
like an era? This is the bottom of
yes,
it?
Yes, this is easily the bottom. The first 2 albums, even though I like them now, I used to joke that, even Thin Lizzy started off kind of shitty. I now realize I was wrong about that. They didn't start off shitty. They started off different. Yeah, but the first 2 albums are easily at the bottom of the catalog for me.
Okay. Well, there's one that would come later that I would put down there too, but the first one I rank pretty well, but the second one, Shades of a Blue Orphanage, that's probably the bottom of the barrel for me. It's terribly disjointed. The production's really bad on it, but I don't know. Basically the first 2 records are them trying to find their sound. There's a little bit of. There's just some confusion in their sound because, like, the songs don't really have cohesion. Rise and Dear Demise of the Funky Nomadic Tribes.
That song actually kind of jams, though.
It's cool, but it's like, if I could describe it, I would say it's like Sly and the Family Stone minus the soul. It doesn't
I think there's still some soul there, because that's actually, I was thinking Sly and the Family Stone when I was listening to it earlier today.
But we didn't need 7 minutes to tell the story.
Right. No, you didn't. And like, I think this is the one that just ends with a drum solo kind of awkwardly.
It's a weird
song. So like, yeah, like the first couple albums are weird. I actually want to give a quick shout out to the New Day EP released between the two albums, because that's actually probably better than the first two albums. Okay. That 4-song EP. There's a great song called Remembering Part 2 that is like the catchiest song in this era, and it's just so good.
And I could wait and watch you see it all unwind, and I could wait and look at you, see it change your mind, and I could even look into your eyes, see them hypnotized. Well, even though I'd enjoy it, the truth to tell, kid, I gotta leave them seats behind. And here I'll go into the new day.
But as far as Shades of a Blue Orphanage, yeah, it's definitely weaker than the first album. I think Sarah is a beautiful song. He wrote that about his grandmother. And his grandmother that raised him, because his mother couldn't afford to raise him when he was young. So, it's kind of the symmetry and poetry of his life, where, his mother had a child at a young age and couldn't raise him, and then he had a child at a young age and couldn't raise his first child. But there was actually a really magical moment I had when listening to this album. There's a song called Brought Down, and the mix is super goofy on it. But if you're listening with headphones, the vocals at the beginning of the song are all on one side, and when the vocals come in, the instruments cut out on that side. So if you take off the headphone with the instruments, you can hear just Phil's vocal. Yeah. It's like a really close vocal, kind of like the Al Green stuff of the era, which is like really close, basically no effects on it. And so it's like an intimate vocal, and it feels like you're in the room with him. And so it's something that I just discovered on accident, but it's just really cool. Like, the song itself is good, but when you do that, it's just it's one of those magical moments of being a music fan where you feel the presence of the guy with you. And so it's a magical moment, and I'd recommend, try it with headphones and just listen to that vocal, and you feel like he's right next to you. It's super cool.
I was seldom sober in 1954. Hey, baby, maybe 'cause my baby had a baby by me.
Nice. I'm going to totally do that.
And then there's I Don't Want to Forget How to Jive, which is basically him doing his best Elvis impersonation.
Yep, that's the Elvis impression.
It's an interesting. They're good. Let me just say, there's not a bad album in their catalog. All of them are good.
Yep, I used to say the first two were bad, but I think I was just being facetious.
They're good, but they're trying to figure out what they're supposed to sound like, especially on this one.
It's a bad place to start. It is a bad place to start if you're a fan.
These two.
All right.
So then, was it 72? They released the single for Whiskey in the Jar, released as a standalone, stayed at top of the Irish charts for 17 weeks.
One of my least favorite Metallica songs.
Oh, right. And peaked at number 6 in 73. Thin Lizzy was the 11th artist to cover this song, and it's a traditional Irish song. But the funniest thing is they refused to put it on the next album, saying it didn't represent their true sound, but I argue they don't know what the hell their true sound is at this point.
So what's kind of funny about that is that I think Vagabonds, the next album, was them coming into their own and finally nailing their sound. Mm-hmm. It's a different sound than what Lizzy is known for, but it's the sound of the first couple albums coming to a place of more cohesion and being just much more powerful and potent. And so Whiskey in the Jar, I think it's a great single. It's a great arrangement. I get really annoyed with the I hear certain cuts of it where they cut out half the guitar solo, and it drives me nuts. Mm-hmm. So you have to listen to the full 5-minute version. Don't listen to the bullshit short version. You got to listen to the one with the full solo because it's great. But once you get to Vagabonds, Like, that's in, like, my top 3 of Lizzy albums, where it sounds different, but the songs are so strong and so much stronger than the first 2 albums, which I've grown to like now. But Vagabonds, like, basically every cut is potent.
It's way more cohesive than the first 2.
Right on.
Like, I heard Mama Nature said in Trader Joe's the other day and was freaking out. Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, this is a deep cut.
It's a 1973 Thin Lizzy I'm hearing. I can't believe it.
My mama nature said, it's murder what you done. I said you fought my brightest world, now it's never gone. Virgin bee's been telling me, you can't see the forest for the trees. Cover up your lies with sympathies, and I got no solution to your persecution.
But, like, you know, I'm looking at the track list now, like The Rocker, you know, a concert staple. You know, it's them just kicking ass, being awesome. Vagabonds of the West World, the title track, is sort of the great blend of, like, the Celtic influence with hard rock. Little Girl in Bloom.
Great ballad.
Like, one of the best ballads of any band ever. And, you know, a song for While I'm Away, just another great ballad. Basically every cut on this album is fantastic. And the thing is, it's a different band. It is not the same Thin Lizzy that you know and love, but this is a damn good band. And if someone started with this album, like, this would be an album where you could listen to and be like, yeah, this is a great band. And then you check out their other stuff, like, this is completely different, but it's still good.
Yeah.
So this Thin Lizzy, they still haven't quite found
Not
themselves
quite,
yet, but
they're
they found
you
something
can see
good.
glimpses of what was going to come.
Right on.
Yeah.
Especially with The Rocker. I mean, that song really fit well with their live set later on.
And the thing to remember is, like, this was them as a one guitar band still.
Yeah.
And so I think this was them with Eric Bell finding their mojo.
Right.
So, and if they continued with Eric Bell, they still would have been a great band. It just would have been a different band. But this was proof that, for me, this album is the proof that you don't need Gorham and Robinson in order for Thin Lizzy to be phenomenal.
Right.
So this is the proof that it's Phil's songwriting that is Thin Lizzy, and not just he got some sweet guitar players later on, which made the band better. I absolutely think they were better, but this is proof that they could still be one of the best bands ever.
Oh, and also you got songs like The Hero and the Madman, where it's got like the storybook narration on it.
That's so cool.
And it's got a cool conga line going on in it too. It's a really weird song, but it's really cool.
I kind of like early Thin Lizzy is kind of like early T-Rex in a lot of
I
ways.
can hear that, yeah.
Where just like the weird like poetry and stuff and like kind of like that chill vibe. So if you're into like the first couple T-Rex albums where they went electric and like the like last couple acoustic albums they did, if you're into that era of T-Rex, then those early Lizzy albums are going to be right up your alley. Like, yeah, this is sweet.
Yeah, I can hear that. It's probably why Tony Visconti got involved with them later.
Yeah, because he heard them like, these guys are sweet.
Yeah.
And also, I put a note here. There were some great like B-sides and singles recorded around this era, because after Eric Bell left, Gary Moore joined the band for a short period, and like there were so many great singles that like they recorded in this in between era. There's a great song called Sitamo Ia, another Celtic one. Little Darling, which forget what hair band covered it. Might have been like Pretty Maids, I think, covered Little Darling. You know, obviously Still in Love with You, but I'm going to give a quick shout out to Cruising in the Lizzy Mobile for having one of the best song titles ever.
Oh, wow. Sounds like an Aerosmith song.
That song is pretty great. It's just like, yep, we're driving around picking up chicks. Cruising for the ladies, as it were.
Imagine if Kiss ever came out with Cruising in the Kiss Mobile.
Don't put it past them.
Yeah, they're like then they're gonna
somebody an idea.
They're gonna think, how can we market that? How can we sell the Kiss Mobile?
Lizzy Mobile. Wow,
That's a trip. So then we ready to go into Nightlife on 74?
Yeah.
So Nightlife comes out 1974, produced by the Phil and Ron Nevison comes into the picture at this point.
I was going to say, how are the album sales? What's their popularity doing
Not
so
much.
far on the trajectory?
Well, Vagabonds was their biggest because they were sort of the hype of Whiskey in the Jar at that point, and so they were still not huge, but I think at that point they were selling well in Ireland, I think.
Yeah.
But not in UK
Nothing-
or the States
nothing
or nothing
yet.
yet. Okay,
No.
all right.
But yeah, Ron Nevison was an interesting choice. I think, did he come off working off with The Who at that point, I think?
Yeah, that I don't know. I'm not as familiar with Ron Nevison,
He
aside
worked on
from...
Quadrophenia, but I don't know if that was before or after this,
And 1,000 great albums after it.
including Crazy Night.
Yeah, hey, his best work.
You guys.
And this was the first one to feature Scott Gorham and Robbo, which is it's a big deal.
The classic lineup. So this is going from a one-guitar band to a two-guitar band.
How does that happen?
Basically, what happened was... So this has actually been part of my band philosophy, which is something I got from Phil. Eric Bell cracked under pressure because Thin Lizzy was starting to make it big. So he quit in the middle of a show, in the middle of a tour.
Dang.
And so Phil and Brian Downey, the drummer, finished the rest of the set without him, just bass, drums, and vocals. And then Phil said, okay, we need to have two guitar players in case someone is flaky and fucks up.
Nice.
And that was the reason.
how it happened.
That was the reason for the two guitar thing. And so that's why ideally I always try to have two guitar players in Lipstick in case, like, oh look, you got drunk, or like, oh you broke your hand in a bar fight, which is something that Thin Lizzy
like
and
the-
Lipstick share.
The twin guitar attack was created out of necessity.
Out of
Pretty much.
spite, out of necessity and spite.
That's a trip. I think this album it's a quantum leap in production, playing, and cohesiveness on this one. It is still more subdued than what you were used to later on from them, because there's like a lot of the loungy, jazzy type sound on this album. But the hooks there's a lot more hooks in this album than the ones before it.
See, I disagree. I think this one is a step down from Vagabonds.
You think so? I think this is better than
I think
Vagabonds.
it's cleaner sounding than Vagabonds. So it's like the guitars sound prettier, everything's clearer. But I think the songs, it's much more mellow than Vagabonds is.
That's true.
And so this is one of their most mellow albums. So it's them going way more mellow. And I think the songwriting on Vagabonds is more potent and powerful, with a couple exceptions. Like obviously, Sha La La is an example of the kind of hard rock and stuff they do. She Knows is great. I mean, these are great songs, but these are mellow,
Banshee's
subdued
great.
songs. Yeah, Banshee's great, but I think it's a little bit too subdued to be as great as Vagabonds, because Vagabonds has the subdued sections, but also the more rockin' sections. I think it's a more balanced listen. Versus this is a pretty mellow album, which like then every now and again abruptly rocks, and it's just like, whoa, what's this going on here? So it's a very weird listen, and so it's a very weird that this is the first one with the classic lineup.
Strange kind of magic, power and voodoo. You want that woman? Yes, you do. Believe me, babe, I know it's true. Come on, sugar, let me give it to you.
Yeah.
But it's still good.
So
Great.
far, have we hit the album that you guys would say this is where I think you should start if you never heard Thin Lizzy yet?
No.
Okay, all right.
Vagabonds.
Because we haven't hit my
This
favorite
one's
yet
great,
either.
though.
This one's great, but I think you need to have a couple Lizzy albums under your belt to appreciate it.
Okay.
Just because it's mellow, it's subdued, it's great, but it's in terms of the classic era, this is easily the bottom of the classic lineup albums.
Right on.
I still love it, though. I love every single song on this
Yeah?
record. Yeah, I think She Knows is fantastic. The title track is a great, just chilled out song.
Still in Love with You.
It's
with
Only Money. I love every song.
Frankie Carroll.
Frankie Carroll's great. Yeah, Phil's vocal on that song is incredible.
Basically, every Thin Lizzy song is great. There's just degrees of greatness.
That's true.
Right. Okay.
Well, I don't know.
awesome.
There is some filler that I'll talk about. We'll have to disagree on that, but Nightlife it's not where you would start, but once you're a fan, I think you'd like it.
Right on.
Yeah.
Are they famous yet? Are they rich? Are
No.
they rich and famous
Not
yet?
at all.
No? Okay.
So then we get to
Are they out of Ireland? Are they touring? Are they doing anything?
they've toured around at that point.
Yeah, they've toured at that point,
They've been
and
in the States yet?
they're based in England at that point, so they're no
Okay.
longer based in Ireland.
All right. Moving up steadily.
Well, then we go. This is the one that got me hooked. Is the next one, 1975's Fighting.
This might be a good starting point.
I think this is a great starting point.
Yeah.
This is when Thin Lizzy starts to sound like the Thin Lizzy you think of.
Yeah.
Where Nightlife, there's a couple songs that sound like the Thin Lizzy you think of, but then there's like the really chill piano ballads like, Frankie Carroll, and it's much more chill. This is the more rocking Thin Lizzy that you know and love. Mm-hmm. And man, just so many great cuts on this where it's hard to even know where to start. Like, I'm going to go with a deep cut right away. Start with Freedom Song.
Listen while I tell the hard luck story about a man named Jack McDuff. He believed in the God and the glory, but it just wasn't tough enough. I believe in the freedom song. Long live liberty. I believe in the freedom song, and I'll choose my own destiny.
Just exemplifying what a great lyricist Phil Lynott is. A song basically about a lynching and fighting for freedom even as you die. Mm-hmm. And coming from a black man in a hard rock setting, it's potent stuff. There's the Bob Seger cover Rosalie, which is better than the original.
Oh yeah, I like Rosalie. I've heard that.
For those who love to live. Potent, emotional, Suicide, great
Suicide.
tune.
You played Suicide
Yeah,
too.
and
haven't you?
Suicide
That's a
predates
great song.
Robbo and Gorham. That was done with Eric Bell originally. But yeah, Wild One is an awesome ballad.
And Fighting My Way Back,
That's
what
a great
an
song.
anthem. What a great, perfect rock anthem. If you like The Who and Kiss,
It's right up there.
that is one of the best rock songs ever made is Fighting My Way Back.
Hooky as hell.
Easily. Yeah, catchy, rocks, and it makes you feel good. The lyrics are inspiring, where it's like, I'm down on my luck, I've had some hard times, but I'm not done. I'm fighting my way back, and I'm gonna, get to where I want to be.
Awesome.
And then there's also, there's different shades on the album. There's Spirit Slips Away, which is like a really dark, moody, delicate type ballad. But and there's one theme that kind of reoccurs with Phil's writing. He wrote a lot about death and mortality. So it almost makes you want, because like certain rock stars that died young, that would be in some of their lyrics. It's almost like if they had a premonition or something. But he definitely wrote a lot about death, and he had a certain feeling about mortality. So that was kind of an early song that he did that on, but he would do that throughout all of their records.
Yeah, Phil just had this magic about him where he just felt like he was almost above it all, like an observer who just came down from the heavens to hang out on Earth for a little bit. And he had rock and roll prophet, was really into, Celtic folk tales like the tale of Cuchulainn and stuff like that. And just how he would weave in it was mythic. It was larger than life, where, he would sing about the American cowboy and the Celtic warrior. And all of them would have the sense of magic and wonder, where the way that people think Steven Spielberg is magic when he's actually kind of shitty, but Phil Lynott is actually
He's
good.
actually magic.
Right. Phil Lynott is actually magic.
Now it's time for rich and fame and riches, right?
Yeah. Well, Jailbreak comes out in 76, and this is basically the one that blew the doors open for them all over the world.
Biggest album of all time?
It's their Jailbreak through album.
Yeah, I like that.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. I think Steve made that joke in our podcast.
That sounds like a Steve joke. But yeah, that came out in March 76 on Vertigo, produced by John Alcock, who would later produce The Runaways. Of course, it's well known for the title track and The Boys Are Back in Town. Recorded at Ramport Studios in London, the producer was chosen because he already worked there and he was familiar with the gear. Scott and Brian didn't like the quick pace of the production and weren't happy with their guitar sound, although I love the guitar sound on this record, on both albums that this guy did with them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a damn classic. There's not a bad cut on here, which I'll probably say about pretty much every album. But, I mean, this has huge concert staples. Jailbreak, Boys Are Back in Town, Cowboy Song, and Emerald.
Yeah, huge.
All classic staples in the catalog. But also, this is a really great album that shows the different sides of Lizzy.
Yeah.
So, like, the ballads are tender, the lyrics are great. There's a song called "Running Back" on the album, and one of the lines is it's like a shuffle ballad, got some saxophone in it, and one of the lines is I make my money singing songs about you. It's my claim to fame, and it's him pining over a woman that he's no longer with.
Yeah.
And like it's cool because it shows I'm a rock star, but I'm still human. And so like there's like the different layers where there's I'm breaking out of a jail and I'm going to punch somebody, and there's a hot chick and I'm going to get with her, but also I'm a tender guy. Like, it's just the different layers make each song an experience, but it still flows together very well. And there's potent kick-ass guitar playing.
Yes.
So, get all the wimpy lyric stuff out of the way. There's bitchin' guitar solos on this album. All over it.
Yeah, this is an album I'm totally familiar with. I love it a lot. I mean, like we said, Jailbreak, The Boys Are Back in Town. You know them, you love them. Even as a kid, and I think back then when those songs were getting pounded into my head, but I listen to them now, and it's like, man, these songs are still damn good. No matter how many times you play them, you can't deny it when you listen to it, how good those two songs are. But to me, man, this album is all about the songs The Warriors and The Emerald.
Yeah,
the Emerald just blows my mind. Warriors and Emerald are
Those
not
are
just two of my favorite Thin Lizzy songs. They're my two favorite songs on this album. They're two of my favorite songs, period.
There's no easy answer for those who wish to know. Just ask those who've been before you what fate the future holds. It ain't pretty,
And Warriors, I think he wrote about what drug dealers, basically, is what he was writing about.
Yep.
But it jams, man. And the Emerald, man, Ace Frehley couldn't have picked a
was a
cooler
great
Thin
cover he
Lizzy
did.
song to cover.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, one of the coolest Lizzy moments was when I was watching like the Live and Dangerous on VH1 Classic, and they had like a video of it, and Brian Robertson was doing the dual leads for Emerald, but he had a cigarette, a lit cigarette in his picking hand.
Yeah.
So he didn't even take the time to set down the cigarette. He's like, all right, let me pick this part. All right. And then when it's, Scott's turn to solo, I'll put the cigarette back in my
You
mouth.
don't have time, yeah.
But like the thing is, like, I saw them like, that is rock and roll. That is so cool.
Yeah. And I thought Romeo and the Lonely Girl, that should have been a giant hit on the radio. I mean, it's tailor-made for it.
Oh, it's a beautiful, fantastic song. All the stuff that the Steve said about this song in our podcast were wrong. Like, it's great.
They didn't like the song?
They're millennials. They were like, oh, there's too many characters. I can't keep up with it. Like, oh, you kids, read a book.
Romeo and the lonely girl, they seem to hit it off. Till Romeo, he told the lonely girl, I must take my leave, my love. It was these few words I overheard thought I would move in. But before I could, the lonely girl had fallen in love again. Oh, poor Romeo, sitting all on his rodeo. Oh, poor Romeo.
And I do like Running Back. It's a good song, but I hate that keyboard part they put on it.
Oh, I love it. I
Ruins
think
it for me.
I think it's great. Like, Running Back is one of my favorite Lizzy deep cuts.
I like the song. I just don't like that keyboard part.
Nah.
See, and to me, it's all about the kick-ass rock. So it's just the Emerald and Warriors, and the rest of it's okay.
Well, and
I
Cowboy
guess.
song that became a staple, and
Yeah.
Anthrax did a great cover.
Right,
of
that was the
too.
first time I ever heard the Cowboy song was the Anthrax cover of it, and then I went back and listened to this. But after not knowing Thin Lizzy and hearing the Anthrax cover, it's hard to go back to listen to that because it's so much
No, I'll still take the
less
Lizzy version.
than what that is.
I'll take the Lizzy version because what's great about that, it almost has like a Skynyrd, like Southern rock
Totally
vibe
does.
to
Yeah,
it.
it totally
And
does.
it's just
It's a great song.
If you like Skynyrd and are not a racist, Cowboy song is for you. If you can handle like a black guy singing about a cowboy, then this is great. And also,
No,
you
it's
know,
a totally awesome
one of the
song.
things that I love about Lizzy, diehard Lizzy fans are all like generally cool people, and it weeds out the racists so fast. Because there are a lot of people who like hard rock. Not all, but like I meet a lot of guys who are like, yeah, I'm really into like all these skinhead bands. Like, not my thing. And so like if you're a Lizzy fan, like I immediately know. You're not a racist.
Right.
You like variety in your music. You care about lyrics. You've got good taste. Like I immediately know, like, okay, if this guy likes Lizzy, he's a cool motherfucker.
Right
So
on.
it's not to say that if you don't like Lizzy, you're a racist or you're not cool. But when you meet someone who likes Lizzy, you're like, all right, sweet. I know you're a good person. Like it's not like
this is your moral compass.
right. It's not like when you meet like a Kiss fan where you're like, this person's either awesome or insane.
Kiss rocks, Maya.
Right. Like there's a bigger discrepancy among diehard Kiss fans and diehard Thin Lizzy fans as to like which one can I definitely have an intelligent conversation with no matter what.
Yeah, I can see that 50-50.
And I love Kiss, and I'm a huge Kiss fan. And so I know someone who sees me like is taking a risk when talking with me, seeing a Kiss t-shirt, like, is he real, people?
Oh man! So 1976, they not only gave us one great album, they gave us another one with Johnny the Fox. Came out in October of 1976. Same producer. Written and recorded while Phil was recovering from about a hepatitis that put him off the road halfway through the Jailbreak tour. And I heard they were supposed to be opening up for Rainbow on that tour when he got sick. Which that's a big opportunity missed at that time for them.
Yeah.
The Don't Believe a Word was a British single. Johnny the Fox was the last Thin Lizzy studio album on which Robbo was featured as a full member of the band. And there was a lot of personality clashes between him and Phil during this time, resulting in him being sacked, reinstated, and later sacked again. Insert your own Monty Python joke there.
Right. Yeah, this is one of the first Thin Lizzy albums I bought on CD. And like there are times where I'm like, this is amazing, and times where I feel it has a lot of filler. But it's killer filler. Yeah. So Don't Believe a Word is one of those songs where I would show it to my millennial friends in high school and they'd be really impressed with it. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And because it's showing the brilliant lyricism of Phil, the vulnerability, but it's inside this kick-ass rock song.
Yeah.
Like, it's this vulnerable vocal, this vulnerable lyric, but with this, like, edgy grit to it that just makes it come off as menacing and coming off as dangerous and cool, and it just succeeds at, like, all the right levels.
Don't believe me if I tell you, not a word of this is true. Don't believe me if I tell you, especially if I tell you I'm in love with you. Don't believe me if I tell you that I wrote this song for you. There's just not been some other sweet pretty girl I'm singing to. Don't believe a word, for words are so easily spoken. And your heart is just like that promise made to be broken.
It's not really catchy enough to be a single, I think, and I think that's maybe why it didn't follow up The Boys Are Back in Town and become massive.
Yeah.
But I think it's a cool song. Like, that's the cool Impress Your Friends song.
Did you see the story about how it got written?
Yeah, where Phil did like a slow, like it's
12-bar blues.
Yeah, 12-bar acoustic ballad, and Rob was like, "Man, that's shite. Let's make it rock." And you know what? Robbo was right.
Yeah, he rewrote it.
He and that was, you know, as I say, Phil is the band. I'm not gonna not knock the contributions of the other dudes, because without Robbo, it would have been a good song, but it wouldn't have been as great of a song.
Right.
And, just this is, I think, out of all their albums, the closest to a concept album they have, where there are recurring characters and themes. Like, the first track in this album, Johnny, is one of my favorite drum songs ever.
Great.
Just those fills.
And we should give credit to Brian Downey. His drumming through all these records is amazing.
Oh, yeah. He is the unsung hero of Thin Lizzy. Everyone talks about the guitar players and how great Phil is, and yes, they're great. But, man, like, one of the best rock drummers ever, and he just gets forgotten because he's in the band with John Sykes and Gary Moore and Phil Lynott.
Incredibly creative drummer.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Yes.
Definitely not a run-of-the-mill drummer. He had really unique fills and everything on his stuff. I think Rocky is kind of a lost gem on this record.
Rocky's awesome. I love that song.
Rocky's great. Massacre, I think, is Emerald done better, is what I always think of it. And so, like, half the time when I'm listening to Emerald, I'm like, this is good, but I could be listening to Massacre now.
The riff on Massacre might be one of their best riffs ever.
It's funky, but also metal. The syncopation is great. The bass playing is cool. The lyric is phenomenal. This is, like, I was talking about on the Lizzy podcast we did, plug, they have the certain categories of songs. They've got, like, the soft jazzy songs, but this fits into what I call the Thin Lizzy battle category.
Right.
And, like, Emerald is in there. There's songs on later albums that are in there, but this is like the... Maiden covered this song. That's kind of all you need to know.
I think, like, Borderline could be a hit today if somebody else would do it. I mean, it's like an early power ballad.
Oh, yeah, Borderline. And you know what? Fool's Gold.
Fool's Gold? It's about the potato famine.
That's the most... Is there anything more Irish than Phil Lynott monologuing about the potato famine?
Don't you think if he had lived, he'd be some sort of activist today? Because he was a very deep thinker, and he was really into social causes. I mean, he was ahead of his time. Like, I don't know if you heard the demo for the song "Gay Boys" that he did. He did this song, which is just like a really cool pop rock, like kind of hard rock song, kind of ballad, like in between. And it was just about a homosexual relationship having trouble dealing with adversity. And he did that demo in the 80s before he died. And the thing is, like, in the 80s, it wasn't really trendy to stand up for gay rights.
No,
and
definitely not.
But, like, for Phil, like, he was just so ahead of his time. And that's also sort of exemplifying, like, what a solid dude he was, where, like, he was going to have the balls to write a song about a gay relationship and not make fun of it and just say, I understand you guys have trouble and hardships because of something you didn't choose.
Right.
And, like, the fact that he was doing stuff like that, man, he's a cool fucking dude.
That's pretty wild, yeah, especially for back then.
But, like, the fact that he, like, was able to do that and still, like, rock and be a badass, like, just nailed it on all the levels.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, this Johnny the Fox is a Thin Lizzy album. I think you played Don't Believe a Word one time, and that's what kicked it off for me, was hearing that song. And I was like, damn, I got to find this album, and I got it. Man, Rocky, Johnny. We do an episode top 10 songs named after dudes, and you get 2 of them on this album.
Although I'm not a big fan of the Johnny the Fox meets Jimmy the Weed song.
Johnny the Fox.
It sounds like an outtake from Shaft.
See,
I love it.
Yeah,
I love that song.
I kind of love the
it's-
Shaft
it is-
soundtrack.
It's
So
funky, but it's like one of those story songs.
Yeah, it's just
Johnny
like-
the Fox.
no, that's
Jimmy the
a
Weed.
standout cut from the album. I think that's.
I love it.
They're just succeeding with the funk influence. And like that's another great thing about Lizzy is all the different influences that you needed a Phil Lynott to make work. Like who could be that black and that Irish at the same time?
Nobody.
It's like
That's
and,
the damn
and,
truth.
And
Wow.
like, but the thing is like R&B, funk, and soul are great genres.
Yeah.
Celtic music is phenomenal. Like there are 2 things that are great. It's like peanut butter, bananas, and bacon, where it's like it sounds like a weird combo. Once you try it, you're like, this is great.
You're going
I
into
see
Gene
what.
Simmons territory. It's like steak and cheesecake.
Yeah. But but I'm going with the Elvis thing
I
because
know.
Phil loves Elvis. But like the fact that he made those things work so well together is part of the magic. And like it's insane to think like no one could really replicate that. It's because of his unique experiences.
All right, so I guess that brings us up to 1977 and Bad Reputation.
You got a bad reputation. That's the word out on the town. It gives a certain fascination, but it can only bring you down. You better turn yourself around. Turn yourself around. Turn it upside down. Turn yourself around.
This album is great, which of course they all are. As the front cover suggests, most of the tracks feature only 3/4 of the band because Robbo is only credited on 3 tracks. He missed most of the previous tour following a hand injury sustained in a bar brawl, and this turned out to be his last effort with the band. With him out of the band, Phil had decided that Scott could handle all the guitar duties and that no replacement would be needed prior to the recording. However, Scott believed that a second guitarist was required, particularly for live work, performing songs that were written for 2 guitars. He later said, I always was a big believer in the magic circle. Once you broke the magic circle, the whole thing was broken, right? He deliberately left Opium Trail and Killer without a cause, without a solo, and he persuaded Phil to let Robbo return to the band to record the solos for those songs. And he flew to Toronto, recorded his lead guitar parts. However, he initially refused to socialize with the other band members. Says, Christ, I wouldn't even have a drink with them. He later added, I tried not to go out to clubs for about a week, then succumbed. Robertson and Gorham shared the lead guitar parts on only one song, That Woman's Gonna Break Your Heart. And this is a funny story I found. The usual cover artist, Jim Fitzpatrick, didn't do the cover for this one. After a misunderstanding between himself and Phil Lynott, with the deadline for the submission of the album cover drawing near, Phil traveled to the U.S. to meet Fitzpatrick at his home in Madison, Connecticut. Instead, he went to Madison, Wisconsin by mistake.
Yeah, I think that's Steve lived by there for a while.
So there's your Wisconsin connection.
Nice.
to
There we
Thin
go.
Lizzy.
Where the hell am I?
That's
What the hell is this?
that's pretty hilarious.
Pre-internet, folks.
There's a lot of happy people and cows around here.
Yeah.
Bad Reputation, potent album. I think better than Johnny the Fox.
Me too.
It's heavier. It's tight. It's the production's tighter, but also like the ballads. Dancing in the Moonlight. That's another.
Should
So
have been a huge hit.
it should have been a huge hit. So I will tell you this: young teenage Greg would go around and sing this song to serenade women, and it was very successful every single time.
When I passed you in the doorway, well, you took me with a glance. I should have took that last bus home, but I asked you for a dance. Now we go steady to the pictures. I always get chocolate stains on my pants. And my father, he's going crazy. He says I'm living in a trance, but I'm dancing in the moonlight. It's caught me in its spotlight. It's alright. Dancing in the moonlight on this long hot summer night.
This is a great song. Guys out there, don't be singing Bang Bang You. Sing Dancing in the Moonlight if you want to impress the ladies. And it just like every time.
And of course, it helps that the ladies have never heard of Thin Lizzy, so they think it's an original.
No, I let them know it was a Thin Lizzy song.
Okay.
I was honest, but also they're just like, that's so beautiful.
That's from me to you through Phil Lynott.
Through Phil Lynott, but it's a heartfelt, great song, phenomenal saxophone, great playing, incredibly tasteful solo from Scott Gorham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Each guitar player in Thin Lizzy has their own charm. And, for Scott, he's got the really tasteful solos. Robbo, he's got the wagging your dick kind of solos with all the whammy bar shenanigans. Mm-hmm. Eric Bell, going back to him just for a second, he had just like a very classic, like 60s lead guitar player kind of sound. And so that was cool. But, Scott really was a great glue for the band at this point and transitioning into this next era, and really went above and beyond in terms of like playing great on the album, but also like keeping them together as a unit, trying to get Robbo on some stuff, like really like a great team player.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened with Robbo? I mean, yeah, he got in a fight and he hurt his hand, but I guess not bad enough to keep him from coming in and soloing on some of these songs. Was it just a thing like
he was being a dick? He was consistently being a dick, and Phil was like, you know what? You're kind of an asshole. I'm kind of done with you just being a jerk to all of us all the time. And I think they weren't able to tour because Robbo hurt his hand in the bar fight.
Yeah, that didn't really ingratiate him to the rest of the guys.
These guys have had a lot of hard luck with their touring, with things coming up, with Phil getting sick and then Robbo hurting his hand. And, I got to think in retrospect, that's got to hurt Thin Lizzy a lot, because
Sure it did.
Not being
there's
able to
a lot
tour.
of other bands that aren't as good as Thin Lizzy that are way more revered than Thin Lizzy today.
Well, if you think about it, that was like the way bands got big in the 70s. They toured relentlessly. Kiss became big because they toured nonstop.
Right.
So if Thin Lizzy toured the way that Kiss toured, oh yeah, they'd definitely be in the like upper pantheon of rock bands where they could be like on an Aerosmith level if they toured that level, but they just weren't able to.
Right, because the talent was there, so something had to cause it.
Yeah, for me, the songs on this album are just amazing. Like, when Soldier of Fortune kicks in with the dual lead, that's unmistakably the Thin Lizzy sound to me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you hear that, and you can't help but smile when you hear that. The title track is kind of like early heavy metal. Like, that main riff is just killer.
And the drums, if you have ever heard this song live, the drums will pummel you. What a phenomenal drum performance from Brian Downey. Like, any drummer, like, listen to this song, you'll be blown away. It is so just phenomenal. It's perfection.
Right. Yeah, Opium Trail, that might be my favorite Thin Lizzy song. I mean, this week. But it changes all the time, but like it's got thought-provoking lyrics. The guitar riffs are like swirling throughout. There's like a bunch of atmosphere. There's vocals pan from side to side. Southbound is a perfect ballad.
Oh, it's like that's also the perfect Thin Lizzy sound in a song. The harmony guitars,
it's beautiful.
The mythic characters in the song, and it makes you feel, for anyone who's gone on a journey in life, like someone who's moved far away, like I came from Cleveland, Ohio and went southbound to Nashville, and so when you go on a journey far away exploring new parts of life, like if you've gone on that journey, you're like, yeah, I can relate to this wandering spirit, and just you resonate with that.
The boom time, it is over. A ghost town is all that's left here. The gold rush, it is over. And depression days draw near. Tonight after sundown, I'm gonna pack my case. I'll leave without a sound, disappear without a trace. Oh, I'm going southbound. Oh, I'm going southbound.
And they did, Black Star Riders played that when I saw them here. Everybody just ate that one up. That was great.
So is this the album?
If you're a hard rock fan, I think this would be a great gateway album for Thin Lizzy.
I think this is a good album to start with, especially like if you don't want to listen to Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak, and you're like, I don't want to just have the hits. I want something a little bit different. this is a great starting point, and it has the different shades of the band too with the ballads. So, and Downtown Sundown,
Dear Lord as the closer.
Dear Lord, which is basically Phil Lynott praying to God in song form.
It's another mortality theme with that song. Yeah.
It's brilliant because it feels like he is actually praying, and not like in a Striper way, as mentioned earlier. Like it feels like heartfelt, like he is crying to God on record in an awesome rock ballad.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Killer Without a Cause, awesome song. I mean, every song is amazing.
Yeah, welcome to Thin Lizzy. Every song is amazing.
Yeah, sorry. I know we're like totally fanboying out on the whole catalog, but it's all great.
Yeah, I mean
they're really on a roll at this point.
Yeah, like this in terms of bands with great catalogs, like in terms of cut for cut, it is really hard to top Thin Lizzy. And that's why the only band that tops Thin Lizzy cut for cut for me is the Beatles. And because they're the fucking Beatles. And so, like, if Thin Lizzy's, like, the only band that's... Because, I love Kiss, but they've got some stinkers. I think we can all agree Kiss has some stinkers.
Thin Lizzy doesn't have nearly the amount of filler that Kiss does.
They really, basically, almost... You can put every Thin Lizzy song into a playlist, hit shuffle, and it's like a 99% chance you're going to get an A+ song.
All right.
So then we go to April of 1979. Black Rose, a rock legend, comes out, produced also by Tony Visconti. Or should we hit up Live and Dangerous before we get into Black Rose?
Let's hit up Live and Dangerous quick. The Kiss Alive of Thin Lizzy albums.
True, in more ways than one.
Yeah, in terms of it, not really being that live, and also being like, yeah, it's way better than the studio cuts, brah.
Yeah.
I own Live and Dangerous. I think it's great. The main reason that I like Live and Dangerous are the songs that aren't on albums. Like Are You Ready?
This is it's a new one. This one is a number called Are You Ready? Are you ready? Are you ready to dance? Are you ready to rip it up? Do you know what I'm talking about? Are you ready to get it up? Are you ready to rock? Are you ready to hip hop flow? Are you ready? Say you're ready, I'm ready.
It's a really potent, kick-ass, energetic, like rock metal song only on the live album. So if you want to listen to it, you can't listen to a studio version. You've only got... There's a live version on a later live album called Life Live. But if you want to listen to that, you had the live album. That's the only option.
There's no studio version of that?
No studio version. And Baby Drives Me Crazy.
Yeah.
Also only on the live album. So there's a couple... But they're live performances, so it's not studio cuts like a live... Well, I mean...
That's a pretty unique thing to do.
And you could, you could definitely make Live and Dangerous your gateway album if you wanted to, because it's like Alive. It's a great introduction to the whole band.
Yeah, it's
catalog.
It's a greatest hits, live, energetic.
It kicks ass. One of the best live albums ever made.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It kicks a lot of ass. Like, if you want just a kick-ass, great live album, especially like 70s live albums,
it's amazing.
Basically, all right, hot take Troyan. I'm going to say it's better than Kiss Alive.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Wow,
it's right up there.
But the thing is, it's close. And on other days, I might go Kiss Alive, but they're like neck and neck. It's easily the same level. And so if someone went Kiss Alive, I could see it. But if someone went Live and Dangerous, I'm like, yeah, I can see that too.
It does as good a job of representing Thin Lizzy as Alive does of representing early Kiss.
Right.
I'll say that.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's a great representation of the band. So then Black Rose, though, April 79, Tony Visconti produces that. Been described by plenty of people as their greatest, most successful album, I guess, among the fans. I guess Jailbreak was really their most successful. But peaked at number 2 in the UK charts, was the first time that Gary Moore remained in the band long enough to do an album after touring with them. Lynott and Downey also appeared on Gary Moore's Back on the Street solo album. That's one you should pick up if you don't have it. But this album, I mean...
This is my favorite Lizzy album.
Go on. Yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
All right, so
So are these guys not doing nothing in the States? I see it peaks at number 2 in the UK, but I mean,
Lizzie in the States, they're Dexy's Midnight Runners. They're a one-hit wonder.
Boys Are Back in Town was about it.
And that wasn't enough to carry them here?
One-hit wonder.
Wow.
They're Dexy's Midnight Runners.
You would have thought that Black Rose would have blown up after that, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, so this is a perfect album in every way. This is like everything I love about Lizzie turned up to 11. Starts off with Do Anything You Want To, a great Believe in Yourself anthem about following your dreams, great guitar harmonies, and then followed by Toughest Street in Town, just this really badass kick-ass rocker.
It's like a hard rock Bruce Springsteen song.
It's like hard rock, but like just so, it's like this kicks so much ass, and it's a lot of people say they resonate with rap because the lyrics feel like they accurately like represent, the urban struggle. And as coming from rougher neighborhoods myself, like this song resonated with me, where it reminded me of the hood and people who would stab you and shit and gunfire. But the thing is, I don't like rap musically, but this is like getting that same visceral street reaction, but from a rock song.
In the morning light, down on the sidewalk, there's a woman with a problem she don't know how to fight. She's destitute and broken down. She softly whispers, is there no one around? And no one hears the sound. Her knees give way and hit the ground. This is the toughest street in town. This is the toughest street around. This is the toughest street in town. This is the toughest.
This song just resonates with me on that visceral gut level, and just it's so potent and powerful. And so for people who just want like that edgy grit, but inside this like incredibly catchy song with soulful vocals, it's phenomenal.
Right on.
Easily one of the best songs. S&M, it's got that great funky groove
I have a
to
story
it.
about that song.
I'm going to let you go to what's your S&M story.
Well, it's
I don't want to hear Chris's S&M
I guess I set
stories.
myself up for that. No, when I used to drive for Lyft part time to make extra money.
This is already off to a great start.
I know. So
Got into a little
of course,
S&M
being a Lyft driver,
also.
I'm like, I'm going to play stuff that people. I'm going to try to turn people on to Thin Lizzy one night. So I put Thin Lizzy on shuffle, just everything, right?
That's awesome.
And I got this couple in the back of the car, and I'm waiting for an Alibi plays first, and I'm like, oh, that's a good song. Who is this? Oh, that's Thin Lizzy. And like, oh, I've heard of them. The Boys Are Back in Town. Like, yeah. Check out more of their stuff. It's really great. Then it rolls over to S&M, and they're hearing the lyrics. They're like, is he singing about what I think he's singing about? I'm like, and it was like halfway through the first verse, and before I even realized, I'm like, oh shit.
Did you get a good tip?
I don't think I got a tip for that. She might have, but no.
Oh, hey-o.
Tip or a whip.
Yeah, but no, it was kind of an awkward moment in the car, though.
What's funny is I have a friend who drives for Uber and Lyft, and he says he has Black Rose in the car often when picking up people.
So he's playing that song,
He's also
too.
playing
It's the
S&M.
weirdest thing.
It'd be funny if the same couple heard it again.
Every time I fly into Nashville and catch a ride from the airport, the guy's playing Thin Lizzy. It's the strangest thing.
Yeah. But Waiting for an Alibi, another perfect catchy single, got ignored on the charts.
So I have some beef with Waiting for an Alibi, or rather the studio version.
Okay.
Drives me nuts, because have you heard the version with the third verse?
I have not.
So there is a third verse to the song that was they did it live before they recorded the album, and then if you have the dedication CD, there's a version of Waiting for an Alibi that's like 30 seconds longer with a third verse, and it completely changes the song and makes it about 10 times better. Where it is the emotional height of the song, the character's arc makes more sense, it is passionate, it is powerful, like you realize it's a love song, and you don't realize it till that third verse, and it's a passionate love song. The best vocal on the album is that third verse, and they cut it.
Valentino got nowhere to go on his own like Romeo. Blow by blow, he watches his money go. Now it's oh so low. It's not that he misses her, or even that he can't resist her. It's just that kissing her, he feels so
then Got to Give It Up, another great song. That's about addiction and the theme of mortality. I've played that on the show before, too.
And it's, of course, right next to Sarah, his ballad about his daughter.
Yeah, and that song and With Love, you know who plays harmonic on those two songs, right?
Bluesy Huey Lewis?
Huey Lewis.
Wow.
And his band Clover had opened for Thin Lizzy, and they struck up a friendship around that time.
Wow.
And, like, Phil was friends with so many people. He was friends with Lemmy, and, like, you know, would jam on stage with Motorhead, and would also have Huey Lewis jam on stage. So if you ever wondered how Huey Lewis connects to Lemmy, Phil Lynott is linking.
He's the bridge.
He is the bridge between Huey Lewis and Lemmy.
Wow. Who knew?
And man, Get Out of Here.
Awesome.
What a potent, you know, great lyrics, great vocal. You know, this, I remember like jamming on this song like on acoustic guitar, like out with friends, and they're like, Greg, play something awesome. And I would just burst into that song, and it's so potent.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
nice.
Just for me, you know, one of the goals I had with Lipstick 3, which we're kind of changing the direction of the album a little bit, but the goal with Lipstick 3 was to be like my version of Black Rose, and my response to this album with like heavy, gritty songs about the streets. And, you know, we're kind of doing a different marketing thing right now, and we're not sure it's going to quite stay that way. But that was my original vision for my third album, was to do something similar to this. So this is just an inspirational album. And, you know, the title track is phenomenal, but also the most out of place on the album.
For sure.
Because you have all these songs that are gritty, urban, you know, street. And then you have this big Celtic epic that takes you back to the Middle Ages. And so you have all these songs that are very contemporary, and then you have this weird, like, almost fantasy throwback thing where he's referencing these characters from mythology. But it's such a great tune, you know, the way they incorporate the different Irish folk songs into the guitar solo. And, I mean, he name drops Cuchulainn, which is one of the most badass, like, mythical characters ever. So, like, name dropping Cuchulainn in a song gets points with me.
Right on.
The OG Berserker.
So then, and really that's, I mean, they were on a real run with those. After that, in my opinion, I don't know about you, I mean, all the albums are great, but it gets a little bit more spotty after this album.
Well, I mean, I think I already seen kind of where the breaking point happened. I think when Robertson is out of the band is when things kind of take the turn.
Well, Gary Moore, you know, definitely earned his stripes on Black Rose, but then you get Chinatown that comes out in October of '80, produced by Kit Wolven, which introduces Snowy White as the other guitar player, and he replaces Gary Moore.
Where's Snowy White come from?
He previously worked with Cliff Richard, Peter Green, and Pink Floyd. And so a very different type of player that they brought in. It also features Darren Wharton, who was only 17 at the time, on keyboards, and he joined them as a permanent member later in the year. The band reunites with Eric Belf for Song for Jimmy that was released as a single in honor of Jimi Hendrix.
There you go. It comes back Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. And then the lineup of Lynott, Gorham, White, and Downey played on the Dear Miss Lonely Hearts, which is one of the best songs Phil ever did, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's credited as Phil Lynott solo, but the lineup is just
it's
Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
And it's appeared on Thin Lizzy Greatest Hits CDs. And that is,
it's a great
you know,
song.
before we get into Chinatown, I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Only 4 chords in that song. The same 4 chords over and over again. When I've been like strapped for time with a set, or we need to do we need to add more songs to the set, I tell someone, "Hey, play this chord progression for like 4 minutes and don't change anything." And it's such a great song. Like the lyrics are brilliant, and it shows that like you can be simple musically, but with like phenomenal lyrics, you can just take a song to the next level. And it's just a phenomenal cut.
Dear Miss Lonely Hearts, I had to write this letter to tell you how I came to meet her. She was sweet, but I dated her sister. That's how I made my mistake, and I can't forget her. I felt depressed till a friend of mine suggested that I write to this address. So unless you can find a cure for my loneliness, it will persist.
And it's basically like a Dear Abby song.
Yeah, it's like a Dear Abby song.
Like, how do I switch out one girl from the other one?
Yeah, but it's...
And the video is pretty hilarious because Phil and Scott are like completely blasted out of their minds in the video.
Yeah.
Just look at their eyes.
I suppose, yeah, because we're in the 80s now. This is video
the
era.
heroin addiction at this point was like at its peak for those two.
But, we're getting to, what is credited as Thin Lizzy, into Chinatown. I actually think there's not a bad track on this album. I think this is one of the more underrated ones in the catalog. I think Snowy White, he was miserable when he was in the band.
Yeah.
He wasn't happy when he was in the band. But I think the albums he did have so many great songs. So... we were talking about Japanese music earlier. The song "We Will Be Strong"
Great song.
sounds like it could be the theme song for an anime.
It does.
Just like the chord structure and the lyrical themes, straight up sounds like the opening theme song for an anime. I'm actually wearing a anime T-shirt right now. My wife got me for my birthday. But because in a lot of particularly like shonen anime, which is targeted towards teenage boys, is about believing in yourself, following your dreams, working hard, and friendship. And "We Will Be Strong" is like, there you go, all that.
Pity the fool, it's hard, but it won't go. That isn't done. Somehow, someday, brother will use a gun. Just walk in the town, just making me sad. It's bringing me down. It's driving me mad. Woman is away from me. We will be strong. I know we have the strength to carry on the strength. I know my rights, I know my rights. I know you've lost, I won. We will be stronger. We will be strong and get stronger every day. Believe me when I say there is no other way, no other way. You cry.
I think it's the best song on the record.
I think it's a great underrated cut in the catalog. I think Chinatown is a great potent tune. As someone who from Cleveland, and people get shot around Chinatown in Cleveland, so I'm like, yeah, I get this. This is some the urban aspects of Lizzy resonate with me. But they also like the way they incorporate the mythology too. It's like it just hitting all the right marks. Sweetheart, just a great deep cut, fun lyrics. Sugar Blues, just it's a fun take. It's not what you expect with a blues song.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a cool twist. Killer on the Loose,
Jack the Ripper.
yeah, it's Jack the Ripper, and it's like just this fucking cool metal song about a serial killer.
It's one of the heavier tunes they've done
Yeah.
at that time.
Having a good time. It's about partying with your bros. I dig it. Genocide, Killing of the Buffalo. I think this might be maybe the most underrated track on the album, because
It doesn't do anything for me.
this feels like another great Lizzy battle epic for me. This is just on that Massacre Emerald level. I think it feels like a great Lizzy epic. Although I think this one, if it was done live, like if you heard a good live version of it, I think it would give it that extra punch. So maybe the studio version doesn't have that extra energy, but I think the writing is there.
I think I don't know, having a good time in Genocide kind of feels like they're trying to rehash what they used to do.
I don't know, having a good time. And I like the way he calls out the individual band members and having a good time, and like the build. Like, hit that drummer again, Brian. Oh yeah, that's it. Like, it's fun. And Hey You, just a really great lyrics about just seeking a better life, but are you really making the right decisions? Like, oh, you can move to the city, but you might miss the country. You can move to the country, you might miss the city. Just like that parallel, just even though he was drugged out of his mind, the lyrics were still good. So power to you, Phil. I think it's a great underrated album, and I think this is not like, if this was your first Lizzy album, it would still be a good enough place to start. It might not be the best place to start, but this is still like, I would say this is not an embarrassing album.
No, it's not embarrassing.
I would say this is still like, if I'm ranking these, if I'm giving these like scores of like A to F, it's still A.
I don't think I could give them scores. It's too hard.
This is A.
One thing I noticed about this is the song "Killer on the Loose." and other songs that we've talked about leading up to this, because, like you said, there's a lot of different things going on within Thin Lizzy on each album. But I think like a song like Killer on the Loose shows the influence of Thin Lizzy on what's about to become the next big thing in the world, which is the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah, sure.
They had their finger on the pulse because they were starting to get a little bit heavier. Phil, on his solo album, started to get a little bit more experimental, like experimenting with new wave and experimenting with, like, you know, synths and stuff, and being a bit
really
poppier.
Yeah.
And he let Lizzy be his outlet for the heavier stuff, because I think he recognized what was going on, because Phil's a guy who's, you know, as we mentioned, ahead of his time.
Right.
So I think he saw where music was going. And, you know, as we get, you know, later in the albums, you're like, yeah, he definitely knew where music was going.
Yeah, which, as we'll go into Renegade, that's a good segue. Because Renegade comes out in November of 81 on Vertigo, self-produced along with Chris Sangarides, who, of course, worked with a lot of metal bands. So they were...
Anvil.
And okay, I'd rather stick with some other bands.
A lot of great bands. And
Anvil. But Darren Wharton was his first credited album with the band, and boy, what a contribution with the song "Angel of Death." I mean, that song is just incredible. Normally having a synth player kind of leading off one of the songs would be a cool fit for Thin Lizzy, but for that song, I think it works. What do you think of this record?
Let alone the lead track.
I mean, I love this album also. I mean, pretty much love every album in the catalog. Angel of Death, like, what a potent metal song. Like, and it's just... This is a stinking heavy tune.
It's dark.
It's really dark because it's talking about, like, you know, Hitler massacring people through genocide. But then, like, after the guitar solo, it goes into like it gets like super personal quick, where it's like Phil is playing the character who's in the hospital with his father, and his father is screaming to God, have mercy on me, don't kill me, and like suffering with pain and anguish.
Yeah. And
it's so freaking metal. And like, for your taste, if you haven't heard Angel of Death...
I've played it on the show.
Oh, okay, yeah. But, like, that is just a great metal tune. As far as Darren's keyboards, they come off as a little bit Spinal Tap-ish to me, if I'm being completely honest.
I like it.
I like it, but it's not my ideal sound for Lizzy overall. If they had continued recording albums over the course of their career, I would have preferred him to like adjust and move to a different style. Mm-hmm. That would be that. But I still love this track. The title track, Renegade, a classic Phil ballad.
Does that not have a bit of a Dire Straits sound to? Like, I can hear a little bit of Mark Knopfler in the songwriting for that one.
I don't really hear it as much in that because I think that's Snowy White and
maybe that's
Phil.
his influence coming in.
Yeah, it's because if you listen to Snowy's solo stuff, it definitely sounds more like that. But I think it's just great tune. Him having the mythic, larger than life characters. The renegade on his motorcycle. Needs to leave the town because people don't understand him. Like, yeah, it's freaking great. The pressure will blow. I mean,
awesome song.
Of my mission, I have made my decision clear. I don't need another reason. I don't want any more brain time. I have made my decision, not for the first but the last time. I'm setting off slow, I'm building it up, I'm letting it go. The pressure will blow tight.
Like, the thing is, you could play that next like a Coheed and Cambria song, and it would be like just as potent. Mm-hmm. Like, it just those harmony guitars. Like, if you played that for a Coheed fan, they'd be like, "Yeah, this is just this great Coheed song done by this band in the '80s."
I love No One Told Him. I think that's a great song.
Oh, phenomenal song.
That is a bit of the old Lizzy sound to it.
Leave This Town also, got that fun little groove to it. Time for me to name drop, but Hollywood Down on Your Luck was covered by Warrant.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And, the guitar player on that album and co-producer on that album was my good friend Billy Morris, who played on the first couple Lipstick albums and, produced the first Lipstick album, played on Lipstick 1 and 2. And one of the reasons I hired Billy to produce and play guitar in Lipstick 1 was I was so impressed with his production and guitar playing on that Warrant album. And, that was a standout cut from it. Yep. And the Warrant cover of this is just, one of the best Warrant songs, period.
Yeah, it's really good.
I actually think they were better than the Lizzy version. And you know how much I love Lizzy. I've been blowing them this whole episode. But I think they succeeded. I think, like, the subtle changes they made improved the song. Like, instead of saying, being on the screen, Warrant said silver screen. It had better, like, flow to it. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, still, the Lizzy version is great.
I think that's another attribute to Thin Lizzy about how influential they were, because not only are they influencing the new wave of British heavy metal, but with a song like that, that's kind of a little before its time, but it's Hollywood. It sounds like something would be Sunset Strip rock, So they're not just influencing Iron Maiden, they're influencing the bands that are coming up on the Strip as well.
And I mean, Warrant and Janie had so many great Lizzy influence songs, like Bid Talk has that Lizzy influence. Yeah. The song Jimmy off the Saints of the Underground album, that is basically just a Lizzy song. Totally. It's Freedom song from the perspective of the lynching assholes. It's basically like the pair to that, but not to derail us into a Warrant conversation. We'll do that another time. We said No One Told Him great. Fats. That's just a great, like, jazzy tune. We talked about how I have my jazz background, so when Lizzy gets jazzy, like, I completely get into it. There's no loss. It doesn't get weird.
No, it fits right in.
Mexican Blood, I mean, what a great storyteller song. It's just proof that Phil can just knock out these great narratives and songs. And I like how in Mexican Blood, where, like, when he starts to talk about the cowboy character, he gets, like, the drawl and, like, gets the, like, the voice. It's It's freaking cool, man. I think this is a great record. Like, we've gone through the track list and like, these are great.
I would take this one over Chinatown. It's funny though, but like Renegade seems to get the most hate from what I've seen from people that review the records. Like, but I don't know why it deserves any hate other than them stretching themselves a bit. You know.
I mean, maybe the production. Maybe they're just like, I don't like the Spinal Tap keyboards.
I like the Spinal Tap.
Yeah, I mean, they're fun.
At least on Angel of Death, I like that.
I mean, look, I just want Lizzy to cover Stonehenge. That would have been great.
What is Thin Lizzy's Elder? Is it this?
Some people consider this their Elder, I guess.
They don't really have...
I don't know that they really have... They didn't really derail their sound too much on any record, though. It was everything felt like a natural evolution.
Yeah.
Like all the way through the one we're going to talk to after. It all feels like that was what they were supposed to do. You know, I don't...
This would be more like their Crazy Nights. You know, this would be more their Carnival of Souls than their Elder. Like their really heavy album that like some people love and some people don't like at all. So I'd say this is more the Carnival of Souls than the Elder.
You don't think the next one's more their Carnival of Souls?
Well, I think their next one is heavier, but in terms of like the fan reaction of being a heavy one that's kind of split in the fan base.
Right.
That's where I compare. But the next one is like their Creatures, their Carnival, their...
I was going to say, we're about to talk about my favorite Thin Lizzy album,
Thunder
and Lightning.
Every single time there's a thunderstorm, I just start shaking my fist and singing the title track, and I get pumped, and so like
I love it.
My wife like laughs at me because she starts humming the riff when like a storm comes because she knows that's what I'm thinking.
So
that's awesome.
Let's give the info. Released March of '83 on Vertigo. Also produced by the band and Chris Sangarides again. Of course, John Sykes gets hired to replace Snowy White. But most of the writing for the album had been done before he got hired, although his lone contribution, Cold Sweat, certainly made its mark.
Covered by Megadeth.
Yeah, brilliantly covered by Megadeth. And Darren Wharton, of course, on this one, co-wrote some of the tracks on here. Someday She's Going to Hit Back, the final single, The Sun Goes Down.
Yes.
And this one, I mean, and this one's polarizing for some fans too, but like it's definitely, I mean, I would consider it basically Thin Lizzy's real heavy metal record.
Oh yeah, I mean this is great. Real quick, just want to touch on the Phil Lynott John Sykes single they did like as sort of his audition piece, the "Please Don't Leave Me" song. Like if you're a fan of his, like John Sykes is more melodic, playing with Whitesnake. That is definitely a precursor to like Is This Love kind of stuff, and some of the best guitar tone you'll ever hear. But you know, on this album, I mean, the title track, it's about a fucking bar fight.
That's awesome.
It's like here's a
that's very Thin Lizzy.
Here's an aggressive metal song in your face about a bar fight where part of the chorus is just shouting "God damn."
Yeah.
Like this is a great album.
Yes, it is.
This is a great starting point for Lizzy. Like there's so many, just standout cuts. Like Holy War was where I was going to go.
Soloing on Holy War is unreal.
It's unreal, and just like it's super cool and menacing, and just like it gives you like the atmosphere of these characters and people like manipulating the populace through religion, and just super cool.
Chosen, we are one. We are frightened of no one, and no one will with
Cold Sweat. I mean, just, nasty, badass riffs. Bad Habits,
Catchy as shit.
and
love Bad Habits.
and Bad Habits is sort of like harkening back to their more classic sound.
Right.
Because this is more of a metal album, but Bad Habits is kind of like classic 70s Lizzy.
Yep.
But I mean, someday she's going to hit back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lizzy, this at this point basically a metal band coming out against domestic violence.
Yeah.
Like, once again, Phil ahead of his time, like, really socially aware, but like not in an asshole way. Like, John Lennon was socially aware, but
Yeah, he
he wanted
wasn't-
him to shut up.
He wasn't preachy about it.
Phil was like, he let you know about it, but like he didn't shove it down your throat. He made you care about it.
Made you understand.
He made you understand. And that was like the brilliant, Baby Please Don't Go. Such a heartbreaking song. You feel the emotion, especially, when his marriage is in turmoil at the time. And, Heart Attack, just this really, potent song about
Yes.
heartbreak and just, and Sun Goes Down has that groove. I mean,
I love The Sun Goes Down. That's an awesome song. That groove is so it's thick. It's in the guitars. Oh God, I love this album.
And, didn't mention this in the one, but like keeps that momentum going. Sweet cowbell, just driving. Like, I mean, once again, like, are you going to, who can say any of these songs are bad? Like, if you say
None
any
of
of these
them are
songs are bad,
None of them are bad.
If you think any of these songs are bad, I'm just going to assume you have shit taste, because this is a great album.
I mean, some are better than others.
Some are
but
better
none
than
of them
others,
are
but
bad.
none of them are bad.
No.
Right.
This-
Exactly.
If you're a fan of classic hard rock and metal,
You have to.
You gotta have this one.
and you don't resonate with this, I don't understand you as a human being.
Like, even if you're a person that heard The Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak, and you're like, Thin Lizzy, no. Get Thunder and Lightning.
Give it a chance.
If you're a hard rocker or a metalhead, if you don't listen to anything else by Thin Lizzy, I recommend this one.
And like the solos, if you're a guitar
Oh my
nerd,
God.
Yeah,
like
John
freaking
Sykes is
the
killing it
the
on here.
solo
Fuck
on
out
Thunder and Lightning,
Yes.
Yeah.
like try playing that solo. It's like one of the most ridiculous guitar solos I've ever heard of any band.
Oh, and like you said earlier, Phil was the glue that held it all together. To be able to have that many personnel changes and continue to put out strong album after strong album, and then to end your run with an album this good, I mean, it's amazing.
Man, that's what sucks about it, because I would have loved to have seen what they could have continued to do
Yeah.
in this vein of Thin Lizzy.
But I know interpersonally, their lives were just falling apart at this point. From interviews I've seen, and Gorham's talked in depth about it, how things were just bad in general, especially with the heroin addiction, especially with Phil's heroin addiction at that point, where I think he had to kind of get roped back in by Phil to even do this record, because he was ready to leave.
Yeah, I think he did kind of have to get roped back in, but also, to Phil's credit, he ended Thin Lizzy in like the classiest way you probably could have. Where they did a double live album,
Yeah.
and they invited all their former guitar players to appear on the album and appear on stage with them, and like that's could you imagine if Kiss invited
I was just going to say,
Vinnie
how
Vincent,
awesome
I wish
would that be?
Bruce
everybody could do
Kulick,
that.
Peter Criss, like if they were to be, but they're like, look, Kiss is not as classy as Thin Lizzy.
That's true.
Apparently not.
But like we talked about all the issues he had with Brian Robertson, Gary Moore, but like Eric Bell, but to bring those dudes back to like close the book that way, just super classy.
That would be awesome.
A couple just loose ends after Thunder and Lightning I want to cover. So there's a fantastic song called "A Night in the Life of a Blues Singer." So it's a Thin Lizzy song recorded during the Black Rose era with Gary Moore, but it was a B-side to a Phil Lynott single. So it was Phil Lynott on the A side, and the B side was Thin Lizzy. It was credited as Thin Lizzy featuring Gary Moore, but it's a great Thin Lizzy song. If you don't know it, it's one of their best, as is the case with all these. And there's also the Gary Moore album Run for Cover, which had Phil on a couple tracks like Military Man and Out in the Fields.
Out in the Fields is a great song. Yeah.
But the real closing of the Thin Lizzy catalog for me is the song Dedication.
Yes.
My gateway song, the song that turned me into a fan, where I was on Sleaze Rocks back, little high school Greg, 16-year-old high school Greg, browsing the internet, and, Sleaze Rocks had a music video page at the time, and I was looking through the videos, and they only had one Thin Lizzy video. It was for Dedication. And just something about the song title fascinated me. I only knew the Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak, and I checked it out, and I knew nothing about the band, but I thought, these guys look cool. This is a great front man. This is an emotional, powerful song. I'm just feeling just the energy, the sincerity. And when you think about a final song, like a final statement as an artist,
Right.
like if you die, what are you leaving in this world? What a final song to go out on.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting like just, a little teary-eyed just thinking about it.
Was that the Thunder and Lightning lineup that recorded that?
It was
Grand Slam?
It was just Gorham and Downey and Lynott.
Okay.
So Sykes was not involved with it. And the thing is, it's like Gorham doing more aggressive playing than he normally does.
Mm-hmm.
But you can tell like the emotion was there from those guys. They wanted to give, because Heart Attack is a great song.
Yeah.
But they wanted to give a more final closing to Lizzy, and like that is a great final tune and just a great song to go out on. I know there was like some legal issues where the guitarist from Grand Slam that he wrote it with, Lawrence Archer.
Yeah.
It was a co-write, but it was only credited to Phil in the release, and there were some legal issues with that. But those Grand Slam demos, if you haven't heard them, there's some great stuff. Like,
great stuff. Yeah.
Gay Boys was one of the songs that I mentioned. One Wish, just all these phenomenal, just great tunes. But
So are these songs that would have been released as a Phil Lynott solo album had he not died?
It was a band that he had started after Thin Lizzy.
And it was called Grand Slam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was called Phil Lynott's Grand Slam, I think is what they billed it as.
But yeah, those demos, great songs. They would have been great Grand Slam songs, or if Lizzy reformed, they would have been great Lizzy songs. But, as it stands, it's unfortunate, such a great loss to music, Phil Lynott dying.
86.
But,
How
if you're
did he die?
Heroin overdose.
Yeah, but man, if you have to go out, what a song to go out on. What a great, posthumous track. Like it's brilliant, and it turned me into a fan. And I didn't know the story behind it when I heard the song. When I saw the video, I just thought,
Great song.
this is awesome. And then found out the story, and it was even better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so another, good gateway I'd recommend, the Dedication album. It's a greatest hits album, but it has some essential cuts. It has the song Dedication, and it has the extended version of Waiting for an Alibi, and the full version of Whiskey in the Jar without cutting out the solo. So, you know what? If you are the kind of person who wants to start with the greatest hits,
That's a good one.
that's a good one, because it has some, like, real special cuts you can't get anywhere else.
That's cool, man. I like that. This has been great.
It's been a fun trip through the whole catalog. I hope you've enjoyed being on there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about a band I love. I'm having a great time.
Oh, it totally shines through, man.
So before we
It's great.
let you go, plug the band and the podcast. real
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, so the band is called Lipstick, and the podcast is called The Lipstick Panel. If you look up, if you go to lipstickgeneration.com, you'll be able to find the band and the podcast. But, I mean, you're on the internet. If you Google Lipstick Panel, you'll find us. If you Google Lipstick Band, you'll find us. But the website's, it's like convenient and tidy. So lipstickgeneration.com is your best bet.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, thanks for doing this again.
Yeah.
We have to have a play out song. What do you think? Do you think we should play out with Dedication?
I think so.
think we
It's the
have to.
perfect
That's
way to end, right?
It's the final Thin Lizzy song.
All right, let's do it. Dedication. Thanks.
This is dedicated to the woman I love. Wherever she stands, my dedication. This is dedicated to the millions that are starving from hunger and dedication. 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 I dedicated, dedicated, dedicated. dedication. This is dedicated to my child of Maine. Wherever she stands, I give a dedication. 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 I dedicate it. Dedicate it. Dedication. Your hands. I dedicate this to the million. I dedicate to you. Oh yeah, a dedication. Oh yeah, oh yeah. This is